Good evening, folks. This is Deb and Dave, and this is the Factivist Report for Sunday, November 26th. And tonight, we're going to be talking about divine right, which is very wrong. There is absolutely nothing right about divine right. It is, in fact, one of the reasons why we got the Fagawi out of England. So here's Dave.
I mean, part of the introduction to this show is going to be about that because that's part of why we founded this country in the first place and started oppressing Native Americans. Pardon me. I am part Algonquin, by the way, but why they started coming to this country and then trying to oppress Native Americans and calling them savages and trashing their religious beliefs.
Wait, can I say something about that whole savages thing? I
Yeah,
noticed this the other day. I know this is not, this is 2023. Am I not right? Okay.
as
So
far as I know.
everybody speaking of Native Americans, this is just a little aside, but I was totally taken aback by this. Everybody knows Coco Pelli, right? The Indian with the thing. He's, they make earrings. I've got his earrings. I've got a T-shirt.
Right.
One of the things it is a fertility symbol, and it's a symbol of acceptance, kindness. I'm looking through Timu the other day, right? And they have a lot of Coco Pelli stuff that's pretty cool, actually.
Right.
But the description is savage with a flute. I'm going, what the fuck is this? Savage? This is 2023. Can't they say Native American? I go, so I wrote a freaking letter to them. I was so flipped out by it. I said, what the hell kind of talk is this? I sent them an email, and I noticed that today they're listed as Coco Pelli and Native American, but I took off on them. I must have written them a 50 freaking paragraph letters telling them how, nasty that was. It's just, give me a break. Let's not continue with that myth, okay? It's ridiculous.
This coming from a company that cannot package their items properly.
Seriously.
Okay. This traveling into the weeds is brought to you by all right. And we're also going to, in honor of Indigenous Peoples Day, we're also going to give you some Heritage Foundation word salad in a few minutes as well, in regards to, are we a Christian nation? Are we not a Christian nation? We don't know. We don't know what the founding fathers were thinking. Maybe they were Christians. I believe they were Christians. They said they were Christians. It's amazing. It really is an amazing thing. So let's get into
they can still be Christians and never intended us to be a Christian nation,
Right.
Right?
Because they were escaping religious oppression.
Right.
No. So let us start.
But hell, that's not going to stop the Heritage Foundation, none. I can tell
God,
you
no.
that.
Or any of these other
correct.
Jerkbag. I'll be, mentioning a couple other, groups like Moms for Liberty and one of your, blasts from the past, the Moral Majority,
Oh, God.
So first, let's pull it back and get back to topic. Uh, the First Amendment, this is what it states. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or of the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. And my basic argument is I have no problem with establishing non-discrimination based on religion, but no one should have the right to use that religion as a weapon and discriminate on other people, whether it be refusing to serve them or refusing to hire them. So so the Heritage Foundation.
Or
Yeah,
Honestly, one of the other problems I have too is this drive to have prayer in public school.
right.
Honestly, not everybody that's attending public school in the United States is Christian. They should not have to pray in a religion that they are not part of. So,
They shouldn't be barred from it, but they shouldn't be um, forced to or coerced to either. That
right.
was part of that Supreme Court case about the guy who was preaching, or not preaching, but praying in the middle of a field, which
Personally,
was
in my opinion, I mean, I see a solution to this problem is you guys want to have prayer, then you either do it in the gym before school
right,
starts, and then you all go to your classrooms. But honestly, I'm sorry, I don't agree with prayer inside the classroom. I don't. And I never did. I did it in Catholic school because we all did it in Catholic school. That was
right,
why I was sent to Catholic school. Okay.
right.
All right.
Yep.
The one reason I was happy that my mother sent me to Catholic school was that I didn't have to go to CCD classes on the weekend. I got my religious stuff during the day at school. So I'm good with that. But I don't believe in public school that you should pray in a classroom. I believe you should have to go somewhere else to do that. You get it done. You want to pray, that's fine. School is to learn. And
Right.
all of this nonsense that everybody's floating around out there that we have to pray because it makes better people, that's a crock of shit. Some of the worst idiots I know went to Catholic school, okay? They learned nothing from prayer. They did not
Not for
improve as human beings.
not for nothing. I think I told you the story before when I prayed, and I prayed with my eyes closed when I did, and a nun smacked me on the back of the head and said, "Don't be ashamed of speaking to God." I'm like, well, I guess that's a violation of my constitutional rights.
They used to hit us on the hand with rulers.
Right,
That was the
exactly.
punishment. Second, I was in the second grade. Until my mother came up to the school and told them, "Do not touch my daughter again." Um, you know, but again, uh, that's just I just have a thing about that. I just don't think I think there's a place for everything, and I just don't think the classroom is the place.
I There are several articles in here from the Heritage Foundation talking about, religion, First Amendment, the separation of church and state, um, are we a Christian nation, religion, blah blah blah. One of the things that I think is all comical to a point is that these intellectuals are talking like they know the intentions of the founding fathers if they didn't write it down.
Right.
Okay.
People
Like,
who,
you
again,
don't know.
nobody exists. Nobody who's living today has met any of them. Okay.
Right. So this is from Mark David Hall, June 7th, 2011. Maybe it is a 29-minute read, but I sure as hell ain't going to waste 29 minutes of my life. I'm just going to read a little bit of this just to show you that it's word salad. Abstract. And this is the abstract, by the way. Did America have a Christian founding? This disputed question, far from being only of historical interest, has important implications for how we conceive of the role of religion in American Republic. Mark David Hall begins by considering two popular answers. Of course not, and absolutely, both of which distort the founders' views. After showing that Christian ideas were one of the most important influences on the founders, he discusses three major areas of agreement with respect to religious liberty, blah, blah, blah. My head exploded when I started to read this thing, to be honest with you. What exactly would a Christian founding look like?
Oh Christ.
One possibility is that the founders identified themselves as Christian. They're talking about possibilities, and so just so you know, they talk a lot in absolutes about how absolutely how things should be based on the Constitution written centuries ago.
Right.
And I just think it's comical again when they do that.
I do
One
too.
of the things that we know that the founding fathers we're doing is escaping a king.
Right.
And one of the things that had been prevalent for centuries is this idea of divine right. Now, this is an idea in European history and culture that is in defense of monarchical absolutism, which basically says the king is the king and he does what he wants because he has his authority derived from God and could not be held accountable for actions by any earthly authority such as parliament. Now think just a minute as how Trump talks
Oh
to
yeah,
me.
that's right up his alley.
Exactly.
That is
Now
no
they
question.
go they go on to talk about how you know the divine right wasn't really prevalent around the time of the revolution because people were starting to reject it.
Right.
You're not the king of me, blah blah blah. So, and they were protesting taxes and all sorts of things, but also this idea that you can dictate what I can do. And by the way, some people in the far right don't want to go back to 1776. They want to go farther back, where you have an absolute chosen by God authority.
Yep.
So this was written in 2018, right after Trump was elected, and uh, he had pardoned a few people. Now you talk about the rule of law. He pardoned two people who arguably accidentally burned federal land when they burned their own grass. Um, and they went to prison. He pardoned them, but he also pardoned the likes of Joe Arpaio, Scooter Libby, people like that. But
Just don't.
this idea that the president has the right to pardon people, and it is in the Constitution. But the New York Times um, argues that it borders on this absolutism idea.
Right.
And obviously, this is from 2012, so this is before he was even elected. But this guy believes it actually balances power, that a president who has absolute pardon power for federal crimes balances out the power. Deb and I disagree with that, but
I really you got to be pulling that out your ass. You really do. I mean, where do you get that from? What's the idea here? That he's pardoning people who don't belong in jail to begin with? Well, that's a ridiculous.
Steve Bannon,
That's a ridiculous thing. Roger Stone,
the Blackwater
the Blackwater people. How about
people.
what's his name there? The guy that was his Secretary of State for what was his name? Oh, I can't never remember his name. He's a military.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
He's repugnant. I just can't. I can picture him, but
Yeah,
I
from Texas.
yeah. Again, you know, we're talking about the difference between pardoning someone who's an offender of marijuana offender or
Right.
even a different drug offender, okay, versus people who have he pardoned people who tried to overthrow the government. All right, he pardoned Roger Stone. Okay, he pardoned Steve Bannon.
He said he was going to pardon himself.
He said he's going to pardon himself, and he's talking about if he gets in, pardon everybody that's been convicted in the J6 investigation. So enough, okay?
For those of you interested, I'm not going to go through a whole list of them, but this is from the Office of the Pardons Attorney from the U.S. Department of Justice. There's a list of everybody that he's pardoned, and past presidents as well. Deb and I have been long proponents of saying that it does upset the balance of power somewhat. It does. It is in the Constitution, but there was a proposal to put these pardons through a congressional vote. I don't know how that would, if it would change anything, especially if he has the majority in both houses. But and for
Mike Flynn, that's the guy I was missing.
Flynn, okay.
All right, we're talking about a guy who consorted with Russia.
I thought he was the Secretary of Defense.
Secretary of Defense, whatever.
Rex Tillerson was yeah.
Yeah. So, these are guys who, in my opinion, anybody who does that kind of stuff, they don't get pardoned. Okay. People who try to undermine democracy do not get pardoned. I don't see it. I can't see the reason for it. I think there needs to be some kind of amendment that
right now
the legislature can change that. They need to do that.
Right. Mike Johnson has made no bones about it. He does want to create laws based on his Christianity. There's an article here. I'm not going to read through it. We've done a whole show on Mike Johnson, so I'm not going to stop the show on that. But what I will say is this. I'm going to hypothesize something for you. You're saying that free speech, you should be allowed to express yourself based on your religious beliefs. And I found this from the Pew Research Center, and it kind of blew my mind. About a third of the voters in the U.S. see God's hand in presidential elections, but fewer say God picks the winners based on policies. They're basically saying Trump was elected based on divine right.
Right.
So we're going back in time. So these people are speaking and acting upon that religious belief. If they went to the Capitol and tried to cause an insurrection, you see where I'm going with this?
Mm-hmm.
This can be dangerous. So the Heritage Foundation has always been considered a Christian organization. However, they shifted their policy, and they shift their policies based on who is in power.
Right.
Okay. With Reagan, it was all about fiscal conservatism. Now, and you saw, some of the articles prior to Trump, I mean, they were still talking about being a Christian nation. They were still talking about the separation of church and state, that you can't separate the two, blah, blah, blah. But this is creating, first off, it's creating an air of this organization. It's discrediting them somewhat. The Project 2025, it's not a popular plan. So, and even some politicians are backing away from it.
Because it mirrors Trump.
Because it mirrors Trump.
And by the way, Project 4047, what is that called? Agenda 47?
Agenda 47, yeah.
Is really Project 2025 on steroids, and that's all Trump. Right? So what this headline says is, adjust in the face of new competition from Trump allies. The Trump allies, that would be Agenda 47. That's what they're adjusting to.
Right. So, but don't worry, public opinion is no excuse to ignore the First Amendment. I agree with that to a point. They're basically talking about a specific case that we'll talk about probably next week.
I agree with that to a point, but I'm going to tell you this. They are the worst offenders of that.
Oh, of course they are.
They are the worst offenders of that. All right. If they don't like what you're saying, they'll find a way to shut you up, because that's the way the Heritage Foundation is.
And the problem I have with all of this is that the Heritage Foundation and other religious and other groups, whether they call themselves a religious group or whatever, they use the freedom of religion clause in the First Amendment, rather, to as a weapon to discriminate against other people, which we will get to. But he's basically talking about the law is the law. Alanis versus Creative 303. There was someone who was creating invitation websites, and they wouldn't, because of their view on gay marriage, they were not going to provide service to this couple. So they sued them.
So let me just propose something here. Public opinion is no excuse to ignore the First Amendment. Then I'm going to suggest to you that these people ought to stay out of drag shows, because all you're doing is exercising your First Amendment right when you attend a drag show. You know, when you perform in a drag show, you are exercising your First Amendment right. You are not harming anyone else. So this is what I mean about, you know, you can't ignore the First Amendment no matter who you are, but for the Heritage Foundation and for the right, they ignore the First Amendment all the time when it's something that they don't agree with.
Correct.
And that, you know, that can't be argued with. That's a full stop. It's been evidence for over since Trump was president. So,
and by the way, which we will get to probably again next show in more detail. However, they are the biggest hypocrites with this, because it specifically says in the First Amendment that you cannot legislate based on people's ideas. Okay. Freedom of expression and all of that. Not only drag shows, but public schools. Yes, you can opt out of a class lesson, but you can't keep a teacher from teaching that class lesson unless you can prove that it has no educational value. And I have never known a teacher really to teach a lesson with absolutely no educational value. You have to have state standards in those lessons. You have to have objectives in those lessons. You have to have all of that.
right.
I was in the system. So this is that article about, from John West.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they were religious. Maybe they weren't religious. Maybe they were bad Christians. Maybe they were good Christians. Who knows? Just letting you know.
It's like they're playing a Trivial Pursuit game.
Okay, restoring religious freedom in public schools. This is basically saying you can't keep a kid from reading a Bible, on a school bus.
That's right. Kid
You can't keep
on the school bus. That's great.
Right, but by the way, can't keep them from reading the Quran either.
Right.
So I don't know what they're talking about. Right.
Or anything else. Or the Satanic Bible. Whatever. Just saying.
Right-wing ideologues taking over school boards. Okay.
Yep.
And by the way, again, congratulations to all of those who voted the Moms for Liberty candidates out. Thank you.
Yep.
I just put this in here. It was a book or something of like a journal article talking about the legislation of morality, which I will be talking about in a moment. But it's not a good idea.
It's impossible to do.
And it's unconstitutional. We have done it before. We're doing it with the Dobbs decision. We did it a long time ago, basically making adultery illegal. We'll talk about that in a minute. So, book bans, okay? When are they unconstitutional? The only time that you can do this in a school, I mean, school boards, listen, school boards and schools and teachers, they have a very limited amount of resources, so they have to pick and choose what they're going to use. I mean, that's a reality. But unless a material is shown to have no educational value whatsoever, you can't you you can't be told you can't use it. A big thing with these parental right groups is calling these things pornographic because pornography is not allowed in school. So, but what are we talking about? You know, they said that some far right group said that "Hello God, it's me, Margaret" was pornographic because it depicted a bodily function.
I can't even. I just can't.
And just for posterity's sake, these religious groups, remember they're human, okay? This guy was a volunteer for a Philadelphia group and was going to volunteer for like an event for autistic kids. Found out he is a registered sex offender. Okay. He was kicked out of the Philadelphia, like a Philadelphia GOP group. So you know he's bad because the GOP pretty much takes anybody.
So
Um,
they were going to put this guy as an outreach person for autistic children.
yes.
Okay, Jesus.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. Nothing wrong with them.
Oh, but they vetted him. They vetted him. It
Well,
was the Philadelphia cops who didn't do the right thing.
oh, was it really? Well,
Yeah,
if you're a registered sex offender, all you got to do is spend $35 to get a background check.
right.
That's all you got to do. I've
He
done
was
it
in the
before.
federal database and he was also in the Illinois
Yeah.
state database.
Yeah. Okay.
And because he was in Pennsylvania, he wasn't in that Pennsylvania state database, but if you go to the federal database, guess what? He'll be in there.
Yep. I don't know. It
Those,
seems to me I know businesses that do background checks on people before they're hired. You can't drive for Instacart until you have a background check.
try
Okay.
doing that with the postal service.
Yeah. And if you are an outreach person for a group that is supposedly so concerned with the children that you fuck up and hire a sexual predator, then there's something wrong with you. Okay. Because you did not do a background check. That's what I'm telling you.
Yeah, but I just want you to know before we preview this article. This article was
More
published
than a
more
year
than a
old.
year ago.
Yeah.
I just wanted to let you know.
God help us.
This was basically a historical recap. Um, and this was by Nancy Unger, who's a professor of history at Santa Clara University and president of Society for Historians of the Gilded and Progressive Era. And she's a prize-winning author. So, and she's writing based on this particular thing we're going to talk about, which is what's called the Mann Act, I believe it is. So prostitution back in we're talking the 19th century was a particular worry because most white Americans subscribed to the idea that white women were inherently sexually chaste, and then immigrants, African Americans, and other people of color to be inferior, rendering the women more susceptible to prostitution and vice. So Rep. James Robert Mann. He was a Republican from Illinois. Um, Created this thing called the White Slave Traffic Act, better known as the Mann Act. Made it a felony for any person to knowingly transport in interstate or foreign commerce any woman or girl for the purpose of prostitution or debauchery for any other immoral purpose. Basically, if you're cheating on your wife and you cross state lines, you could get arrested.
Yeah, I think
Understand
that's
this.
such a good idea. That's what I think.
And it goes on and on. Some people were, were railroaded for this law, and it was, I think it was changed in like the late 70s. So FBI opened nearly 50,000 investigations between 1921 and 1936. The Caminetti Diggs case involved consensual adult extramarital sex. African men who pursued women outside their race were targeted, including Rex Ingram and musician Chuck Berry. Law also proved a powerfully effective way to punish famous white men for their left of center or flouting politics or flouting of social norms. So William Thomas, Frank Lloyd Wright, and British poet George Baker, and also Charlie Chaplin. The abuse of the law changed only when amendments to the Mann Act in 1978 and 1986 transformed it into a tool to fight actual sex trafficking. Okay.
The notion that we should have the FBI wasting their time chasing people who are cheating on their spouses is mind-boggling. I mean, seriously, how far back do we have to go?
Right.
It's crazy.
Now, this was in the 19th century when it started, or like early 1900s when it started, but it went on for decades.
I know. Do we want to really go back there? I don't think so.
So there are current Supreme Court cases which I want to talk about in the next show. There's the Alanis versus 303 Creative, which was very, very focused on a business owner who did not want to express views other than her own. I mean, my suggestion is don't go into a business planning weddings and say that you could do business with same-sex marriages and then back out. That's just me. Another one is a school faculty member who prayed during football games, and it wasn't seen as a big deal until students started to gather around him and pray with him, and then the school asked him not to do it. It became a Supreme Court thing, and he actually won the case.
Yep, it's a great article about that, by the way. I have it.
And then the next one coming up is Bostock versus, it was, where is it? Bear Creek Bible Church and Braidwood Management versus the EEOC. Basically, they're saying that they can refuse to hire someone based on their sexual orientation because of their religious beliefs. This is a big one. Okay. And this is the case. This I found from a college library talking about religious oppression of other religions. My issue is you shouldn't be able to dictate to anyone what they can do and what they can't do. We should have the freedom from religion.
Right.
Okay.
Some of us choose not to religiosity. We
Right.
do not indulge in religiosity.
This is this is a little article from the Office of Civil Rights talking about religious discrimination, and is basically, you don't have a right to comment on somebody's religious dress or keep them from, doing this, that, or the other thing. I do know that at our place of work, we have allowed people meditation spaces for their religious meditation. Um, and that's fine.
And that's a good thing.
Yeah. So, a couple things I wanted to talk about at the end. Again, Pew Center. Remember, this has been going on forever. Reverend Falwell's moral majority mission. The question was his mission accomplished? Basically, what this person, Tom Rosenthal, was suggesting is that, let's see if I can find it. Okay, he disbanded the moral majority in 1989 after 10 years, basically declaring his mission was accomplished. Um, Basically, what the suggestion is that if Falwell meant that evangelical Christians had come to accept the idea that organized religion and religious leaders should play an activist role in the political process, his epitaph for the moral majority is well supported by public opinion surveys. Here's the issue with that. Again, that's fine if you allow Buddhist uh, ideas in politics, or Muslim ideas in politics, or whatever other denomination you can think of. So finally, this
By the
one
way,
thing.
that study's from 2006. I
Yes,
suggest they might want to redo it.
yeah.
I think you would find the numbers different.
The numbers would be my point being that, you know this has been going on for a very long time, and
Right.
things are way different than they were,
In
over
2006.
20 years ago.
Yep.
Um, Here's an opinion piece by Kate Cohen that I found very, very interesting. Um, Asking why we're tolerant of church bigotry. Oh, because they have a right to say it. Her idea is, it's what we've been saying all along, really. Um, she recalls a story about when one of her kids was 12. He was asked to join a choir group. Now, he was atheist, but he's like, that's fine. I can sing those songs, and I like singing. So either, as long as they don't object to same-sex marriage, I'm in. And they did. So he said, nope, sorry. And when when so when they found that out, this is what happened. High on maternal pride, I was calculating how I'd get him to 2 rehearsals a week. He asked me whether the church condones same-sex marriage. I said I didn't know, and he said, well, if they don't, I'm not going to join. And she checked. They most emphatically did not. When I told the choir master why my son was declining the invitation, he responded that progressive forces inside the church were working toward change. That is how you you change things within the system.
And by the way, the current Pope, he is changing things.
Right.
And it may not seem like like it's big enough steps, but within the Catholic Church, and I can tell you this, having been brought up Catholic and went through 14 years of Catholic school, the changes he's making, saying that he wants bishops to bless same-sex marriages and actually removing a bishop who was openly disagreeing with his movement forward of the church, that's a big step in the Catholic Church.
It's a huge step.
That's huge. Okay. And, change takes time.
Think of what would have happened if he would have done that within the United States. They
Right.
probably would have taken him to the Supreme Court.
Right. Right.
So my whole thing on this, I just wanted to kind of do a background of it, is that having your own beliefs is fine, but you don't have a right to dictate what somebody else does, in their spare time or how they live their life, as long as they're a consenting adult and they're not harming anyone else.
And by the way, the founding fathers most definitely did want a separation between church and state.
Yeah.
And they wrote it in a letter. I believe it was Thomas Jefferson who wrote it in a letter. So
I'll find it and I'll put it in the sources. It was something that was mentioned prior, and a couple of things. I mean, the Heritage Foundation always finds a way to, explain things away.
Yeah, well,
so
yeah, they're propagandists, so they're really good at that. Actually,
they're really good. Yeah,
you have to give credit where credit is due. They have hoodwinked how many people on the right? But I do want to remind everybody that democracy is based on the rule of the majority, and the right is not in the majority in this nation. Okay? I want to remind everyone that they are not the majority, and that if every Democrat who is registered can get out and vote, and if Democrats who are not registered can get off the fence and get themselves registered and get out and vote, we can eliminate this problem.
Here we go. So this is from the Library of Congress, and it's relatively short, so I'll read it. To Messrs. Nehemiah, Dodge, Ephraim Robbins. All right. And Stephen Nelson, a committee of the Danbury Baptist Association in the state of Connecticut. Gentlemen, the affectionate sentiments of esteem and approbation which you are so good as to express toward me on behalf of the Danbury Baptist Association give me the highest satisfaction. My duties dictate a faithful and zealous pursuit of the interests of my constituents, and in proportion as they are persuaded of my fidelity to those duties, the discharge of them becomes more and more pleasing. Believing with you that religion is a matter that lies solely between a man and his God, that he owes account to none other for his faith or his worship, that the legitimate powers of government reach actions only and not opinions. I contemplate with sovereign reverence that act of the whole American people which declared that their legislature should make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, thus building a wall of separation between church and state. Adhering to this expression of the supreme will of the nation in behalf of the rights of conscience, I shall see with sincere satisfaction the progress of those sentiments which tend to restore to man all his natural rights, convinced he has no natural right in opposition to his social duties. I reciprocate your kind prayers for the protection and blessing of the common Father and Creator of man, and tender you for yourselves and your religious association assurances of my high respect and esteem. Thomas Jefferson, January 1st, 1802. Now, is that a perfect document, perfect letter? No. They talk about man, 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 man. They don't talk about woman.
It was 1802.
It was 1802.
Uh, let me also just say this. For the benefit of those people talking about the separation between church and state, I have a for those people who believe in the Bible, I have some words from Jesus Christ, who also stated that there was a separation between church and state when he said, you ready? I want you to listen. Render to Caesar those things that are Caesar's, and render to God the things that are God's. Okay? So, folks, this notion that there is no separation between church and state, well, guess what? That's not true. There is. All right? You cannot force people to pray. You cannot force people to believe in your God. You cannot expect people to just fall in line with that. That's unacceptable. It is a personal decision. And, you want to pray. You should be allowed to do that. But in the greater, when you've got a classroom full of, say, 42 kids, and only 20 of them are Christian, and another 5 might be Muslim, and another 10 might be Jewish, and another 15 might be Islamic or whatever. You can't, it's not okay to assume that they should have to stand there and pray a Christian prayer. That is infringing on their personal First Amendment rights. Not
And
doing
to take this whole thing full circle, Jesus Christ, according to the Bible and the writings of the Bible and that passage, expressly said that divine right was nonsense.
correct.
Okay? God's law is God's law, man's law is man's law. And by the way, if you really want to not separate church and state, take a look at our short show. These people who talk about not separating church and state and they violate the Ten Commandments, just saying. Yeah, ask Marjorie Taylor Greene or Lauren Boebert.
Yeah. Why don't we ask remember when Donald Trump stood with the Bible in his hand and justified separating families, separating immigrant children from their families? Remember that?
Yep.
Remember that Donald Trump has absolutely no moral compunction to hold the Bible under any circumstance. Okay.
And by the way, guys, I ask if you're interested in all of this. Again, I put the articles up here for a reason. That article talking about Trump and the divine right, they actually bring up his separation of families. Not only the pardons, but also separating immigrants from their families. So, and who is he? So,
yeah,
that's what I have. I think what I want to do is kind of bring this back in and talk about the hypocrisy next when they talk about religious freedom. I think we do need a constitutional amendment for freedom from religion. Okay. No one should have. I think that whole Supreme Court case about the religious association, they're trying to say if you are working for a church, you have to follow the laws of the church. I don't necessarily agree with that, but
no, I mean, look, what if you are let's just say for shits and giggles, what if you are a public relations director and you don't believe in any religion, but they want you to work on building, let's say, bringing more people to the church.
Right.
You could do that job without having to believe.
Right.
You can.
And by the way, I bring this up all the time. Kim Davis, she knew what job she was doing when she was hired as that clerk.
Right.
So
Job, if you can't handle it, that's your job. It's
right.
your job to give out marriage certificates.
To specifically,
It's
right.
not your job to judge who you give them, to decide who you're going to give them out to based on your religion. That's your religion. So, nonsense.
And I don't like this idea that you can use religion as a weapon against other people.
Exactly.
That's what this all boils down to. You want to live your life the way you want to live your life, that's fine.
Can I just make a statement about that? That's what turns people off to religion, is when it's used as a weapon against them. It really is. It turns people off. And there's nothing attractive about believing in a religion that is used to oppress other people. Okay? There just isn't. That is why so many people have turned away from the Catholic Church over the years. They're trying to bring them back in. This is what the Pope is trying to do, is bring them back in. He's trying to bring them back in by being less dickish than the Catholic Church has been in the past. They've alienated a lot of their my whole family is Catholic. Okay? All right. I grew up in a Catholic house. I went to Catholic school for 14 years, but I'll be damned if I'm going to be told how to live my life by any religion. It's not what I'm doing.
And remember, the more pious you are, especially if you're a public figure, the harder you can fall.
Yep.
Jim Jordan, with his cover up of that individual.
Yep.
And you have Ted Cruz. What was that thing with adult movies or whatever? Whatever it was, I don't know. But or religious figures cheating on their wives or whatever it is,
or people like Kenneth Copeland, who rakes in money from his church. He's got $300 million in personal wealth. That's not what the church was supposed to be about.
Right.
That's not what that was supposed to be. The Catholic Church itself is the single biggest owner of art in the world.
Right.
One thing if they were donating and using that money to help the poor, but they're not. Okay. This is.
Remember that whole thing with Joel Osteen?
Yep.
With the building and how he was trying to keep people during the flood. I mean, I mean, like, come on.
All of these televangelists, they're full of shit. Let me just tell you that. What they are grifters. Okay? What's her name there? I can never remember this woman's name. The Gospel of Prosperity. God intended for the rich people to run the world. Okay? I mean, you can't make this up. She's got $6 or $7 million in personal wealth. There's a list out there that's got all the heads of the churches. Rick Warren, the anti-gay guy, $12 million. These guys are all loaded. Kenneth Copeland, $300 million for that fucking church that, that glass church, whatever the hell it is, $300 million.
Oh, right. Was that thing that's like the triangle thing?
Something like that. It's whatever it is. It's, again, these people aren't about God and religion. They're about money and grifting and politics. That's what they are. Wake up. Okay? Remember, those are the guys that Jesus cast out of the temple.
Right.
Those guys. The rich guys. He threw them out. Remember that? Yeah. Nobody remembers those parts of the Bible, though. They don't remember those.
Oh, wait.
And when did Jesus become a white man? Can we trace it back?
I forgot about this. I gotta. Hold on. Let's see if I can find it. Do 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 do. There we go.
They managed to make Jesus white somehow.
So Jesus is my savior. Trump is my president.
Holy
Okay.
God.
And this YouTube video, I put it in the short show.
Oh my
Listen to it. I
shit.
sacrificed myself for you. Yeah. Oh my God. And
I just can't.
maybe the most, there we go, savior.
Oh, that's fucking blasphemy right there.
I know.
Oh my fucking God. No, did you see the picture over here?
Oh, that, yeah.
Oh.
Oh, I looked at all this. The funniest one to me, yeah, hero. Um, where is it? I can't find it now. Is the freaking mask. The mask with Trump is my president, Jesus is my savior. It's somewhere. You got to be kidding me. There we go. Our Lord and Savior, Mr. Trump,
Good God in heaven.
in flag form. And by the way,
It's
this
about
is
as fucking Christian as Satan.
the
This guy is as evil and rank and loathsome. To put him on the same freaking platform as Jesus. Not that I'm religious or
oh,
anything, but holy God.
and
Really?
Deb,
Yeah.
you know, you've said this before. You put a black woman in a freaking Jesus is my savior shirt.
Yeah.
She's a model, folks.
She's a model, honey. Yeah. They pay her for that. Remember that.
There it is, right there.
Mother of.
These are the same people who were against masking. Remember that?
Right.
And is the what was the significance of the black flags? What black flag? Wasn't it a 3%er thing?
I think so.
There's one with a black flag in here. I saw it before. My eyes are burning.
Mine are about to fall out.
Flag form. It's incredible. Right there. That right there is a right wing group with a black flag.
Yeah.
So right here, this is thou shalt no false idols and all that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know.
They weren't serious about that. They were just
Uh,
kidding.
yeah. Well, maybe they intended it this way, Deb. Maybe back in the day they said except for
This is
when
what the
someone is
founding
elected for
fathers would have
president.
wanted us to do. Not that. Oh shit. Why did I think of that?
The word salad is friggin' amazing. Look, these guys are
Oh, I'm not kidding you, folks. I went out and got myself ordained back in, I don't know, 19. I don't know.
50. What were you,
No,
five?
I got ordained. I can do same-sex marriages, but I was going to start a church called Delanetics, just as
Oh,
a
awesome.
joke. Just as a
Yeah.
joke, okay? I've never done anything with it. But you can just buy this shit online. You don't have to go through any training. It costs $20. You can
Right.
get yourself a little certificate. There's all kinds of fake Jesus people out there, folks. That's what I'm basically saying. And the people on the right, they're fake Jesus people. They like Republican Jesus, the divine God of retribution and payback. That's what they worship. That's their Jesus. But that's not Jesus, okay? That's
Well,
that's white man's Jesus.
right.
Okay.
We're going back in time, and people are using religion to keep the LGBTQ community for buying products and to keep them from being hired.
Yep.
You know, I didn't know about Harvey Milk until a few years ago, and I didn't even think of the issue of people having to stay closeted so they wouldn't get fired from their job. And this is where we're going back to.
Yep. So here's the way we look at it. Just like fascism is out in the open now, we can't put the genie back in the bottle. We must refuse to allow the Republicans to put us back in the bottle. Okay.
Right.
This is the time to stand and fight. And this is what we need to do.
The best way to fight a lot of this, remember, we had Cracker Barrel, we have Chick-fil-A, we have all these companies. They're about money, by the way.
Yep.
They're about money. Once they realize that they're losing money due to their policies, they will change their policies. I still won't go to Chick-fil-A, so you know, because I know who they really are.
Right.
But
yeah, Chick-fil-A is pretending they're inclusive now because they started taking a hit, but they're not really. They're really
right.
Yeah. Hobby Lobby is never going to be.
No, they never will.
No.
And neither will the Heritage Foundation, by the way.
Actually, Hobby Lobby took out ads, full page ads, I believe, during the 2020 election on behalf of Trump.
Right.
You know.
By the way, I forgot about this one too. Thou shalt not lie. Thou shalt not bear false witness. The Heritage Foundation spent a ton of money, millions and millions of dollars, being proponents of the big lie.
Yeah, and so did the Republican Party, the party of Jesus, by the way.
Right.
Okay, gang, we'll be back next week, but we'll see us in between. Later. Where are you?
I'm right here. Dave's not here.